I would have forgotten today as well, if I'm being honest. Thank you for that. And I am recording locally. Forgot to record yesterday. I had to re-record the whole thing. So yeah, that was fun. Zod, we'll discuss a little bit towards the end. There'll be assignment, and then eventually, of course, we'll learn about it as well. But today also we're going to touch a little bit about what is Zod, why is it needed. Can we turn off the raise hand thingy, Akash? I also need to learn how to do that. All right, we will start in another minute or two. Now everyone's raising hands. When I was writing the slides for this one, I think this is this is the last class of the cohort, but this is the last class after which full stack. You can create a front end, a back end, and connect it to a database. Maybe one more thing that is missing is you don't know React. So maybe like another week or two. After which, basically by week, this is 7. So by week 10, you should be fully equipped to create projects. So after that, let's try to create a few projects with this stack. This isn't too bad of a stack. After this comes, the standard. Well, you move from NoSQL to SQL databases. A few extra things, but long story short, 2-3 more weeks and then we're sorted. And thankfully this time we've been going slow, so I'm hoping everyone understands everything. If not, let me know. But yeah, when I was creating the slides was the first thing that happened. All right, cool. We will wait for another minute and then we will start. This is the slides for today, so let me paste it in chat as well. Everyone can see it. Slides for today. Let me share my screen. We're going to learn about MongoDB. Hopefully a few of you have already gotten yourself a MongoDB instance URL, a free one. If not, wait for some time, and during the class I'll give like 5 minutes to do it. It's not too difficult to get one. You can also run MongoDB locally. Let's actually start with the poll. I want to see how many of you already know this. There's a repository. Let's wait for a second. Don't do a poll just yet. But in the assignments, you'll find this code. How many of you, this is the code that we'll eventually be writing and reaching at. How many of you already understand this, mongoose, mongoose.connect, and then there's a db.js file over here where we have defined our schema. And then there is a auth.js file, which though we did last week. So hopefully this is straightforward. So how many of you understand this? How many of you already know this? Can you create a MongoDB instance? Can you create a CRUD app already using MongoDB? This is the most basic CRUD app. This is where, people stop and say, I know Monstack, why am I not getting a job? Because, this is literally the starting point of creating a Monstack application or whatever, full stack application. So let's do a poll now. How many of you already know this? If you look at specifically this file right here, do you understand what is happening? Or, can you code this yourself a little bit by reading the docs, not like blindly, but can you read through the docs, try to figure out? If I ask you today, do you understand this already? Okay, so the answer is mostly towards no, like fair combination here. 60% don't know this at all, and 40% do. For the 40%, here is my advice. If I was you today, and if I was in this course to bleed out all the value I would quickly clone this repository, and there are 7 sort of improvements that can be done here. 6. I would do these rather than wasting 1 hour of the class. There's nothing new you're going to learn anyways. So try to read through these. Some of these might be new to you, some of these might not be. These are all the bad things in the code right now. So try to fix these and then call it. I think it should take you more than an hour to fix these anyways. We'll try to wrap it up in 1.5 hours, leave 30 minutes for doubts without any further ado. One more time, these are the slides. I'm going to paste them in the chat and we'll go from there. Let's kick things off with the context for today. As I mentioned, it's an exciting class because today we're sort of trying to finish full stack because we have done backend a little bit, we have done front end a little bit. Today we're doing databases again a little bit. This is the final code that we'll be trying to write today. 40% of the class already knows this code, can understand this code. For them, do the assignment. 60%, let's try to understand what exactly is happening in this code. What exactly is a database? Why do you need a database? And why is it an integral part of full stack development? In today's class, we'll understand about databases and more specifically about NoSQL databases. There are various types of databases. Eventually, we'll be learning about SQL databases also. Today, we are learning about NoSQL databases. We will understand what is a NoSQL database and some other categories of databases as well. We'll learn about MongoDB and how you can use it to persist data for your full stack application. Until now, you might have noticed we were using in-memory data stores. We would create a global variable where we would put all of our data. Today, we'll be persisting our data in a database. The things that you're going to learn are: number one, creating a free MongoDB cloud server. Number two, connecting your full stack application to the MongoDB cluster. Number three, defining the schema, this, db.js file that I was showing you over here. What exactly is happening over here? What exactly is this schema? Number four, we'll learn about this library called Mongoose. Just like Express is a library that lets you create an HTTP server, Mongoose is a library that lets you connect to a MongoDB instance and talk to it, put data inside the MongoDB instance, grab data from it, so on and so forth. And lastly, we'll understand what are CRUD operations: create, read, update, and delete. And how do you do these CRUD operations using the Mongoose library? Fairly simple stuff, but we'll go slow and start off by understanding what exactly is a database. So until now, we've done these two things. We have created the front ends of our applications. If you've tried to create a to-do application by now, or a very simple application which just lets you sign up and shows you your profile information, you've written some front-end code in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You've written some back-end code in, let's say, Node.js. You haven't yet used databases at all, but databases are an important part of full stack development. This is the place where you eventually persist your data. This is the place where you store information, like if you're creating a Twitter application, then all of the tweets. If you're creating a to-do application, then all of the to-dos, the user information, so on and so forth. So you will be creating thousands of applications as time goes by, hopefully. And when you do, your stack would look something like this. You will be writing the front end in most probably either React or Next.js. Chalo, ignore Next.js for now. In 2 or 3 weeks, we will start to write the front end in React. Until now, we have been writing the front end in HTML/CSS/JS. We have also been writing the backend. The backend is written in Node.js for us, but it doesn't matter. In the future, you can write it in Rust, you can write it in Java, Golang, Python. All of these libraries let you write HTTP servers. In case of Node.js, we have used Express, but for a different framework or for a different language like Golang, you will use a different framework. For a different language like Rust, you will use a different framework. All of these languages have famous HTTP servers that people have created. The thing that remains constant, irrespective of your backend stack, your backend stack could be Node, it could be Go, it could be Rust. But the thing that stays static is your database. I repeat, databases, ऐसा नहीं होगा कि if you're using Node.js, you will use a different database. If you're using Rust, you will use a different database. There are 3-4 types of databases. You use one of those. Doesn't matter if you're using the Node.js library or language, if you're using the Golang language. There are, one of, let's say, 10 famous databases that you will use. Some of these databases are NoSQL databases. I repeat, some of these databases are NoSQL. They are easy to understand, which is why we are first learning about this easy NoSQL database. Eventually, we will learn about SQL databases also, which are slightly harder to understand, which, requires some extra knowledge. If I'm being honest, it takes you a day to move from NoSQL to SQL, but we will be getting to this later on. Today, we are focusing on NoSQL databases, and we will understand how can you create a database and how can you use it in your full stack application. So what have we learned? The thing to learn is, in a full stack application, there is the front end, which is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Usually, eventually, we will be deploying our applications on the internet. They will be deployed somewhere on, mytodooapp.com. So you will have multiple backend servers. I repeat, you will have multiple backend servers, which will store, which will run your Express application, Node, index.js. If you create a very popular application, you will not have one server. You will have a fleet of backend servers. You will have many backend servers, which will be transient. I repeat, what does transient mean? Okay, when you deploy this application, sometimes this backend server will go down, but that is fine. The other backend servers will handle your load. Sometimes this one will go down. That is fine. Others will handle your load. Sometimes you will receive a lot of traffic. When a lot of traffic comes, then you will upscale the number of backend servers. Your backend servers are transient. What does transient mean? It means you can stop them, start them. Your life will be fine, because if one server goes down, there will be another one handling it. They are not persisting any data. They are what are called stateless. I repeat, the way we have written, or we will be writing backends from now on, backends would be stateless. What does stateless mean? Okay, we will not be storing any information in our backend servers. That's usually a very bad idea. If you have a fleet of backend servers and you start to store information over here, okay, if a user signed up, I just stored it in an in-memory variable over here. Then when this server crashes, that information is lost. That information is not persisted, which is why servers should be stateless. They should not have state. They should not persist any data. Versus a database is where you should be persisting your data. A database server, even though you scale databases also, but they are not meant to go up and down every day. You might still have a fleet of database servers where you're storing data, replicating data, making sure if one goes down, there is resiliency. If a data center a rocket comes, then your other data center has your information. You do replicate database servers as well, but you don't auto scale them very quickly. Okay, let me increase the number of servers, let me decrease the number of servers. Rarely will you touch your database infrastructure, because it is storing your actual data. If all of these servers died, you are screwed. If today all HDFC Bank databases, wherever they have their data, if a rocket comes to all those data centers, then God knows what my HDFC Bank balance is, God knows what your HDFC Bank balance is. Of course, they have enough replication to ensure if there is a physical disaster, it only happens in one place, data is replicated at another place. But hopefully you get the idea. Okay, if there are 5 places where you are replicating your database, where you're storing your data from your database, if all 5 of those goes down, literally your application has no wajud anymore. You have lost all user data. Versus if your servers go down, it is fine. If your servers go down for a day, your application is down for a day. Next day, you will recover. You will deploy your servers in a different data center. Application will restart. But if all the database servers go down, then you are completely screwed. Then your data is lost. So you always ensure this thing on the right, the database, doesn't auto scale too much also. And also it's replicated enough. If it's a physical infrastructure, physical disaster, you'll be able to recover data. The backend servers, here also you do replication, but you don't worry about it too much. Okay, theek hai. Even if all our backend servers go down, then we will wait for a day. We will tell everyone we are down for a day. Next day we will come up. And front end, these challenges don't even come. Usually front ends are also distributed via backends, but let's not go there. This is a high level of a full stack application: a front end, a backend, a database. Until now, we have learned this and this. We are not going to learn anything about their deployment. So I'm just talking a little bit too, so you understand the difference between both of them. Today, we're going to learn about how can you create a database? How can you connect your full stack application, let's say your Node.js application, to the database? So to recap, what is a database? A database is a organized collection of data that are structured to enable efficient storage, retrieval, and management of information. Whatever information your full stack application has, for example, user information, to-dos of your end users, posts if you are Facebook, tweets if you are Twitter, storing them in a persistent state, a server that stays there hopefully forever, is what is called a database. This thing on the right is what we will create today and what we will try to connect to our Node.js backend. Specifically, the database we're learning about is a database called MongoDB. Some of you might have heard of it. In fact, the MERN stack mein M stands for MongoDB. So that is why this is the first database that we're going to understand. What is MongoDB? Or more specifically, what are NoSQL databases? NoSQL databases are a broad category of databases that diverge from traditional SQL databases. So the reason they are called NoSQL is because initially the market was flooded with SQL databases. SQL databases were the norm everyone would use SQL databases. What are SQL databases we will get to, but there was something called structured query language databases that everyone would use. Then someone came in and said, no, we are trying something new. We are a NoSQL database. They could have thought of better names, but they said, no, we are competing with SQL. So now our category of databases will be called NoSQL databases. They are designed to handle a variety of data models and workloads that may not fit neatly into tabular schema of relational databases. Now you will only understand this statement if you already know how SQL databases work. If you don't, that is fine. Let me just give you a brief idea of what this statement means. There are some use cases where it makes sense to use a NoSQL database. It will make your life easier versus, most of the use cases you should stick to SQL for. But some use cases may MongoDB or NoSQL shines. That is what this statement over here is telling you. Okay, they are designed to handle a variety of data models that may not fit neatly into the tabular schema of relational databases. This is a problem that we clearly see in app.100xsteps.com. If you go to app.100xsteps.com, we have not used MongoDB. We have used a SQL database. We have used an SQL database, and they become very difficult when you have a weird data model. Harkirat, what is a weird data model? Let me share. In case of app.100xsteps.com, we have a nested structure of folders. We have, this is the initial website. It has week 1 over here, week 2 over here, week 3 over here. When you click on it, you reach another structure of, video 1, video 2, video 3. When you click on this, then you have the video 1 playing, let's say. This is what I mean when I say a nested structure. We can have a folder inside a folder inside a folder, like infinite set of folders. This is one use case where NoSQL shines. Why? Let's get to it later on. Let's not drill down into the details of these. But sometimes you can argue that NoSQL databases are better. Most of the times you should stick to SQL databases. The reason I am saying that for some use cases NoSQL is better is because of this, there are a few reasons. Of course, NoSQL came with its own set of advantages, but realistically, practically, you use it for schema flexibility. Harkirat, what is a schema? First, you have to share that. Schema means the data model. How does your data look like? If you have a to-do application, what are you storing? That is your schema. Schema means structure over here. I repeat, what is the schema? When someone asks you in the context of a database, a new jargon we are introducing right now, schema. Schema means, what does the database look like? What does your end data look like? Can I say, for my to-do application, the database schema looks like this. I have a users table. I need to store the users information. Where the schema will be, they will have an email, which will be a string. They will have a password, which will be a string. They will have a name, let's say, which will be a string. Age, that will be a number. This is my schema. This is how my data looks like in the database. I will have a to-dos table where I will store, the information related to a to-do. Things like the title of the to-do, which will be a string. Whether or not this to-do has been marked as done by the user. It will be a boolean, so on and so forth. This is my schema. The good thing about MongoDB is that MongoDB is schema-less. I repeat, MongoDB is schema-less, which means you don't have to define the schema like this. It doesn't even have a defined schema. You can shove anything in there. You don't have to upfront describe, this is what my to-dos table looks like. This is what my users tables look like. Why is that good? That is good for some use cases. For example, the use case that I was talking about, where you have a folder inside a folder inside a folder. तो वहाँ पे you can't really describe very well कि what will a folder look like. We don't know. The folder table might have another folder inside. It might just have a single video inside. It might have a video plus a Notion doc inside. So it's very hard to describe its schema upfront, which is why NoSQL is a better choice for that. What property of NoSQL that I'm telling shines? The property is called schema flexibility. NoSQL databases often allow for a flexible schema. What does flexible schema mean? It means you can change it as time goes by. Abhi we only have folders, tomorrow we will have something else. Meaning you can store data in formats that don't require a fixed structure. If you go to app.100xdev.com, we don't have a fixed structure. We could have a folder inside a folder, or folder inside a folder inside a folder inside a video. So it's very hard to predict the schema upfront, which is why NoSQL is a better use case for it. We will eventually see, this in action as well. Why does it become better for unstructured data like this? And the second reason is scalability. MongoDB and many other NoSQL databases are designed to scale horizontally. Which basically means you can increase the number of instances and that will just scale your database. If you currently have a lot of traffic coming in, add another server in your database cluster and that will just scale your database, versus this becomes a little hard in case of SQL. In case of SQL, you have to use techniques like sharding or something called the master slave architecture. NoSQL databases, MongoDB, scales horizontally like this. You just have to keep increasing compute. You just have to keep increasing the number of servers, making it easier to distribute data across multiple servers and handle large volumes of traffic. So what are its two upsides? Number one, schema flexibility. We will see very soon what this is. Number two, it's easier to scale, at least theoretically. This is what your MongoDB cluster would eventually look like. Very soon we will be creating our own MongoDB clusters. What is a cluster over here, Harkiyat? Basically a bunch of machines. A bunch of machines that are holding our data is what is called a cluster of machines. So we will be creating our MongoDB cluster very soon, which will have a bunch of machines where we will be storing data like this. We will have, let's say, a Twitter app database. You might create hundreds of applications tomorrow. So you don't have to create a fresh MongoDB database for everyone, or a fresh MongoDB cluster for everyone. In a single MongoDB cluster, let's say $20 a month, you can store your Twitter app user information. You can store your LinkedIn app user information. You can store your simple to-do app information. You can structure them into separate databases. So what does a MongoDB cluster look like? What are we going to create very soon? What was this, third section over here? This is a Node.js application. There is some JavaScript code written over here. What is a database? It's a bunch of machines, or specifically for, NoSQL databases that we're creating today. It is, let's say, 3-4 machines, which is why we're calling it a cluster. Today, we don't have money, so we won't create 3-4 machines. We will create a single machine that we will call our MongoDB cluster. Inside the MongoDB cluster, we are going to have data that looks like this. We will create various databases. Today, we are just dealing with the to-do application. So we will create a to-do application database, a place where we can dump all of our to-do application data. And what would that data be? We will have a users table, or in case of MongoDB, they are called collections. I will have a users collection where I'll be storing all of my user information. Things like, this is my first user, this is their ID, this is their name, and this is their age. And I will be storing their to-do information. This specific to-do, go to gym, needs to be done by 9 PM by this specific user whose ID is, let's say, AKS DKDK. So this is the ID of a user. This is the users table, and this is the to-dos table. They are both connected via this user ID. We will be getting more into this connection later on when we reach relationships. Relationships in MongoDB are an important concept we will understand eventually. But for now, do we high level understand that the thing that we are building today, the to-do application that we're building today, what will its database look like at a high level? We will have a, we will create our MongoDB cluster. We will of course not create a Twitter application today. We will not create a LinkedIn application today. We will create a single database called To-Do app database, inside which we will create two collections. What is a collection? As the name suggests, it lets you dump a lot of collection of things. I will put all my user information here. Okay, this is user 1, and then I might have a user 2, a user 3, so on and so forth. Similarly, a to-do collection where I'll have everyone's to-dos in here, and I'll clearly mention that this is the to-do of user ID 1, this is the to-do of user ID 2, so on and so forth. Do we understand this before we start to code? Let's do a quick poll. Alrighty, 87%. Good, not bad. I will proceed. Let's try to finish in by 9:30, and then I will take doubts for everyone who did not understand. Try to code, and slowly this might become more easier to understand. 87% is good either way. We understand what our database is. We understand we are today going to create a MongoDB database, a NoSQL database. Let's do that. Let's quickly get ourselves a free database on the cloud. What does on the cloud mean? Basically, it is hosted on the internet, just like app.100xsteps.com is hosted on the internet. We are going to host our database on the internet, thankfully for free. MongoDB folks, this MongoDB cloud people, or whatever, MongoDB people have their paid offering called cloud.mongodb.com. We will use their free offering for now. Eventually, if our application has a lot of users, we can move over to their paid offering. So let's spend 5 minutes and try to follow these steps. Hopefully some of you already have it. We had already posted a video in the offline section. If not, I'm going to go through some steps. There are very small things that you can miss that will, you will lose your hair trying to fix them. So try to focus for, just 2 seconds. Otherwise, eventually when you try this, it will be a little hard. I'm going to go to this website, account.mongodb.com. I'm going to sign up using a new user. Let's say, hopefully this is a new user that is signing in or signing up. I am not a new user, so I'm going to give you guys 30 seconds. When you sign up, it'll ask you for some, do you agree to these terms and conditions, things like these, approve them, agree to them, and then, quickly try to reach this screen over here where there is a button called create cluster. Clearly it is telling you, okay, let's create a MongoDB cluster. Of course, a free one for now, but this, button will let you create one. So I'm going to wait for 20 more seconds for you to, who is Prashant? For you to sign up. Okay, makes sense. For you to quickly sign up and, reach this page, and then we will proceed. Oh, we already have one, do we? This isn't a fresh account, I think. I already have some databases over here, or whatever clusters over here. So let me go to my other browser where I just signed up before the class. Fresh sign up I did over here. And now if I go to the databases, let me delete the one that I had created right before the class. Oh, how do I delete this guy? I'm trying to delete it so I can start from scratch and show you guys how to do it. But of course there is no easy thing, way for me to delete this cluster. Alrighty. We will try one more time. We will again log in with another Gmail of mine and hope this is a fresh account so that, I can show you the steps from scratch. Let's try this one. I think this should be a fresh account. 100xsteps@gmail.com. If I sign up using this one, this is also not a fresh account. but this doesn't have any clusters yet. So I think I can create a fresh cluster over here. There you go. I click on create cluster. There you go. If you see this, then you are not good. M2, it is only letting me create paid clusters because this one has been, how do you delete a cluster? I hate MongoDB. All clusters, project 0. I can create a paid one as well. I don't have my card here, so it'll just terminate. There you go. Oof. Alrighty. Cool. I just deleted my old free cluster so I can create a new one with you guys. There you go. This is what I see. Hopefully you see the same thing. I click on build a cluster. And now it shows me M0 free because you can only create one free MongoDB cluster. So I'm going to select M0 free for learning and exploring MongoDB. When you signed up, you should have probably also automatically reached a screen like this. Over here, I'm going to give it a name, cluster 0. I'm going to select which cloud will it be hosted on. AWS is fine. Region, you can change it to India if you want. This is also fine for now. Create deployment. What will this do? This will create a free MongoDB cluster for me where I can start to now put some data in there and use it as a database. So after that, this is the screen where I have reached. And in this screen, it tells me, okay, how do you want to connect to this MongoDB cluster? Do you want to connect using your full stack application, Node.js, Golang? Answer is yes, eventually. Before that, I want to connect to it using this GUI called Compass. MongoDB Compass is a famous graphical user interface. It's basically an application. Let me just open it and show you. The application looks like this. It lets you visualize data very quickly. I repeat, it lets you visualize your database very quickly. So it would be a good idea for you to download Compass. If not, that is fine. You can just see it on my screen. If I open Compass over here, it asks me, do I have it or not? I already have it, so I don't have to install it. I say I have MongoDB installed locally. It tells me the cluster is still provisioning, so we will have to wait until that happens. And then we will be able to connect to this MongoDB cluster. So there's nothing much we can do. All we have to do is wait. But maybe we all started to create one together, so it's taking time. Can we do a quick poll? Were you guys able to get a MongoDB URL? Can we proceed? Oh, most of you did. 76% did, 75% did. That's not too bad. Cool. In that case, we can proceed. Seems like now it might, most probably this is the case. We are all creating it at the same time. So, they're not able to give out so many free MongoDB, these things. Let me try that one more time. Cluster 0. Yeah, it's stuck on being created. I would assume the same is the case for a lot of you. So there's nothing you can do right now. You can install MongoDB locally. That will just take time. So, feel free to ignore the cluster not being created for now. Eventually, when it does, oh, there you go. Happened. Cool. So now it got provision for me at least. I see a connect button over here. When I click on the connect button, I have to select Compass and it will tell me, okay, hey, you can connect to your MongoDB cluster by adding this connection string to MongoDB Compass. So what am I going to do? I'm going to open MongoDB Compass and it is telling me, okay, this is how you can connect to this MongoDB cluster. This is how you can connect to your server. These are my credentials almost. This is my username. This is my password, which they are not showing right now. I will have to reconfigure the password. But at least it is telling me that this is how you can connect to your MongoDB cluster. It is telling me, okay, this is the URL where your cluster is hosted. This is the username of your cluster that you can use to connect to it. The password, I don't know yet. So for that, I need to go to the database access over here. Check the 100x devs user. You might have a default user on your side. Click on edit and just edit the password to auto generate a new one. What am I doing? I'm just generating a new password for this 100x devs user. I will copy this password and paste it over here. That is how I can connect to my MongoDB cluster. To repeat, what did I do? Number one, I went over here to my deployments. I saw I have one cluster over here. I clicked on the connect button. I selected, I want to connect to you using MongoDB Compass. It said, this is the string that you have to paste over there. Only I needed to find this database password. So I reset the database password by going here, selecting my user and resetting the password. One more thing some of you might have to do is network access. Make sure you go to network access. This is basically telling who all can access this MongoDB cluster. Which IPs, what does network access mean? Okay, which IPs can access this MongoDB cluster? So over here, just add, 0.0.0.0/0. And it is already giving you a warning. It is saying this access list potentially allows all IPv4 IPs to access the cluster. It is basically telling you, you are opening your MongoDB cluster to everyone. And that is fine for now because we are testing it. If you want, you can also just restrict it to your own public IP. But I have this entry over here, which it clearly tells me it includes your current IP address. I also have this one, which includes my current IP address. So make sure your current IP address can connect to the cluster. Otherwise, you will be stuck on connecting over here. So make sure you have network access given. Make sure your database username password is correct by going here and, resetting the password. After you have done both these things, you will be able to connect to your database. If I try connecting to my database now, it says authentication failed. I forgot to save the user when I changed the password, I think. Edit password, auto generate new password, copy, update user. Changed password is pasted over here. And when I connect, it still says bad authentication. Network access, open for everywhere. Some of you might be seeing it as well. It is fine. Right before the class started, someone said I've wasted 4 hours trying to connect to the MongoDB cluster. I'm trying to see what am I missing here. I'm sure some of you already see it. We are deploying your changes, creating a plan. I don't know. Compass, cluster 0.osjj. That looks right. 100xdevs : password @ this thing. Connect. Now it connected. Maybe it was deploying the changes of resetting my password. That would be my guess. Now I am connected to my cluster. Now I can create a new database if I want. I can create a bunch of collections inside the database I want. Even if you don't have a full stack application, if you want to just have a database for kicks, my data I am putting in MongoDB somewhere so it persists, you can use this GUI to do it. You can use this graphical user interface to do it. Can we do a quick poll? Were you guys, some of you, all of you, have you reached here? Are you able to see your MongoDB cluster? Can you connect to it? Alrighty. Only 70% are able to connect to it and 30% aren't able to connect to it. Small 5-minute break we will take, maybe even smaller, 4 minutes. Let me look at Q&A really quickly. Recap. Cluster is being created. Recap. Where to get the password again? Can you show the process? Okay, I will show the process one last time. Number one, I'm not deleting my cluster, but when you go to this website, I'm just repeating once, and then there is an offline video that you should have gone through, and you can go through after the class. And it's fine if you don't have one right now. Just follow through the class. Eventually you can create it and test it. I went over here. I clicked on the create cluster button. Step 1, create cluster button. When I click on create cluster, it took me to this page. Now over here, it is not showing me the M0 category. M0 means free category. Some of you might be seeing it. The people who haven't yet created will see the M0 category. So select the M0 category over here. Select AWS as the provider. Select Bahrain as the location, doesn't matter. And click on create deployment. I repeat, select M0 so you don't get charged. If you don't already have a cluster, you should see M0 over here. Once you see that, once you're able to do that, it will say cluster is creating. It will start to create a cluster for you. Then what I said was, at some point it might have asked you to create a new user. Whatever that user was, when you click on connect and compass, I repeat, what did I click on? Connect and then compass. It showed me this string, this part of which is the username of this specific user that you want to connect with. I repeat, anytime you're connecting to a database, you have a username and password for it. This is the username. And how can you reset the password? Go to database access over here. Select the username, in my case 100xdevs. Click on edit. Click on edit password. Auto generate a new password or set your own password, whatever you are comfortable with. Click on update user. That will update the user's password. And now, if you go back to the deployment, click on overview here, click on connect over here, you will see when you now click on compass, copy this whole string. And when you go to MongoDB compass now, paste that string with the password replaced. I repeat, the password should be changed to whatever your password is. If you don't understand it, you can just use my connection string URL for now. This is my connection string URL. I forgot the password. Let me show it to you guys. So you can just use my MongoDB for now. The problem there will be, we will all be putting data in the same place. So we will see a bunch of weird data. But if you weren't able to create one right now, it is fine. I will put my MongoDB credentials in the chat. You can use my MongoDB credentials. I can find them over here. If I click here on the left, this was the thing that I was connecting with. This was my MongoDB connection URL. I am just pasting this in chat for everyone who doesn't have it. Just use my MongoDB URL for now. All right. Then you and I will connect to the same cluster. When you click on connect and I click on connect, we will see the same data. That also means if you put something fishy over here, if you put I love Kiara on the left and I'm being too, polite over here, you can put anything as the database. It will pop up on the screen. So don't put anything weird. And we can all use this common database for the testing today, eventually create your own. Cool. That is how you create your own MongoDB cluster. And thankfully, right now I took you through one tedious process. There are other ways to start a MongoDB cluster also. You can start it locally on your machine. MongoDB is open source. Just like you can bring Node.js to your machine, you can bring MongoDB to your machine, run it locally. We are just using their cloud offering for now. And what does their cloud offering give us? It gives us a very long string like this, where this is the username, this is the password, and this is the cluster URL. This is where the MongoDB cluster is actually hosted. Do we understand this? Can we proceed now? And for the people who don't have a cluster, you can use mine. Just connect to it. I'm sure if everyone connects to it, that will also break. So, hopefully it is not breaking for most of you. Are we good to go? Alrighty, 92% is great, 89%, 87%, 88% is good. Let's proceed and understand. How can you put data inside this now, Harkirat? No Node.js for now. How can we put some data inside this? How can we make it look like this? We have our MongoDB cluster. Let me put this on the left. I have my MongoDB cluster. What do I want to do? Let me try to create a to-do app database here. For people who are using mine, don't create. I will create and you will automatically see it. I am creating a fresh database over here. I'm going to call it to-do-app-database. And what all collections do I need inside? I need a users collection and a to-dos collection. Let me create a users collection first. Whenever you create a database, you have to create at least one collection, which is why, it's asking me the name of one. I created the users collection. I can see a bunch of other people have also created to-do, test. Everyone is creating on the same database. That is fine. And over here, users collection is already there. This thing over here. The to-do collection, I'm going to create myself here. So what is the other collection I want to create? A to-dos collection. So I have a users collection. I have a to-dos collection. If I want, I can literally put data here manually. If I don't want to create a full stack application, just want a data store, then I can use this GUI to do everything. I can insert a document here. It says, yeah, this is the ID of this document. And the way IDs are done in MongoDB is a little weird. They use something called object IDs, which is why, you don't see a simple field over here called ID that is 1. No, in case of MongoDB, whenever you are creating an ID, what is an ID? An identifier, a unique identifier for this specific, whatever this is called. What is this called? Collection, database collection. Let's call it a row. Though this should be called, I think this is a document. Yes. Whenever you are creating a document, there you go. Insert document. Whenever you are creating a document, every document needs to have a unique ID, and it looks like this. It is an object ID, and it has a certain format. It already gave me one by default. I am going to use that. What other information do I need to put in their username, which let's say is harkirat@gmail.com, and their password, which let's say is 123123, and their name, which let's say is Harkirat. Insert. I have the first document in here. If I have 1,000 users, I will insert 1,000 documents here. Similarly, the to-do application may, I can add data, and whatever. This is the description of my to-do. Go to gym, and you can put other things in here like, is this to-do done or not? Let's say false. I have not yet gone to the gym. And one new field I am introducing over here, which is going to confuse some people, is user ID. It is, who is this user jiska to-do hai ye? Whose to-do is this? I am not saying user name over here. Kya ye Harkirat ka to-do hai? I'm not saying this is the name of the person whose to-do it is. I'm not saying this is the password. I'm not storing all of this over here. I am storing just their user ID. Because given their user ID, I can automatically find their first name, last name, things like these. Whenever you create a relationship, you have to ensure tum sirf ID store karo. You only store the ID. You don't put all of this data and copy it over here. You don't put the name over here as well. I get that this to-do belongs to an ID. I repeat, this to-do belongs to a user. But the thing that you store here is just the user ID. So let me insert this. Now the user ID, of course, is incorrect. What is the other user's ID that I created? That user's ID was 665E whatever. So I'm going to copy this, go back over here and replace user ID with an object ID. What is the type of this user ID? It isn't a string. The user ID isn't a string. What is this to-do ID? It is not a string. It is a new type called the object ID. Similarly over here, the type is not a string, not an array, not a binary, but an object ID, and the value inside is this. So I just copied the user ID from here, pasted it over here. This is what our final database will look like. Only it won't be populated like this. ऐसे थोड़ी बैठ के हम भरेंगे. We will have a full stack application that does it. Do we understand this? Do we understand how to play with a database? How to insert things in a database? How to maybe edit things in a database? I can edit it like this. How to delete things from a database? I can also delete this entry. Do we understand how we have seeded the data? Let's quickly do a poll before we move on to some very little last set of theoretical things. Then we'll start to code. Oh boy, इसमें क्या difficult था भाई? Okay, 75% understand this. Let me look at Q&A. Too fast. Document paste कर दो collection का. Object ID will only be one. Difference between underscore ID and user ID. Please share the slide link. It has been pasted. Please go slow. All right. What to do after editing password? If we add the more to do from our server on Mongo, then the default Mongo is going to give us ID or just default initial document only. Good questions. Good questions. By how to change password? Alrighty. Can't connect, recap, alrighty. Let me recap. After you have created your MongoDB cluster, after you have connected to your MongoDB cluster, the thing that I explained in the last section was कि यार let's start to put some data in there. हम manual data entry कर देते हैं. Just like if I today tell you कि यार you have to do manual data entry, what would you do? You will go to, let's say, spreadsheets.google.com. You will create a new spreadsheet over here and you will start to store your user information over here. Another timestamp to remember, Akash. You will store your information like this. Here we have a username field, we have a password field, and we have, the name field. The first user of ours is Harkirat. This is their password and this is their name. And maybe the ID field, which, let's say you give a random ID, like 1 is the ID for this guy, 2 is the ID for this guy, Raman. This is the password of the second guy, Raman, or whatever, raman@gmail.com. This is how you would start to store your data. You might later say to do application, and you will start to do the data entry here as well. This is one way you can store your data on the cloud. Okay, you are storing it in Google server. And similarly, I was showing that given you have a database, a place जहाँ पे तुम data store कर सकते हो, rather than creating a new spreadsheet, what am I creating? I am creating a new database. I am naming it to do app Harkirat. ये मेरी database का नाम है. And it will have two collections. One will be the users collection, जो मैं यहाँ बना रहा हूँ. The one that I'm creating over here is the users collection. As you can see, a lot of other people have created their own databases here. And what is the other collection I am making? मेरे को क्या क्या store करना है? I want to store the users information. I want to store the to do information. So the other thing I'm storing over here is the to dos. यार ये दो मेरी collections हैं. These are my two collections. And now in the users collection, I will put one document first. I will say add data, insert a document. And I will say ID to default ID that MongoDB gives us. Whenever we do this via Node.js also, you will see it automatically generates an ID whenever you insert a document. Whenever you insert a document in MongoDB, it automatically generates an ID for you. Let's not touch that. And what else do I need to add in here? This is JSON, JavaScript object notation. So I can just add username, harkirat@gmail.com. I can add password 123123. I can add name Harkirat, something like this. Rather than storing it in a spreadsheet, I am storing it over here. I have inserted a document in my database. This document has a unique ID, a way to identify this row. Just like this guy has this ID over here, the row number over here. This will be unique for everyone, right? Iski ID आप कह सकते हो is 2. Iski ID आप कह सकते हो it is 3. Similarly, this guy has a unique ID over here. And again, when I create a to-do, I am copying this user ID. I am copying this user ID because जो मैं to-do बना रहा हूँ, the to-do that I am making, when I click on add data over here and click on insert document over here, पहले तो I will put the random to-do information. Okay, the description of this to-do is go to gym. And then whether or not this is done is this is not done yet. But the new field that I'm adding over here, the extra field that I'm adding over here is user ID. कौन है वो बंदा जिसकी ये ID है? Who is this person whose to-do this is? In the spreadsheet, how can I write? I can write here the to-do का name is go to gym. And it is not done yet. And the user जिसका ये है, that user has, let's say ID of 2. Let's say this user has ID of 2. This user has ID of 3. So what am I saying? Go to gym is not done. And this is for this user. This row has its own ID also. Go to gym की ID 11 है. This to do has its own ID. And it has the user ID. कि यार this to do belongs to which guy? It belongs to the guy whose ID is 2. So that is what the user ID field is. And that is how it is different from the ID field. Let's say this is the title. This is whether or not it is done. This is the user ID. I am relating data from one table to another table by saying कि यार user ID over here is 2, which means इस user का है. Does this row have its own ID? It does. इसकी ID क्या है? 11. So its own ID is 11 and it is related to the user with ID 2. That is exactly what I did over here. कि यार my own ID is this. मेरी भी तो खुद एक identifier है for this row. But the user ID that I am connecting to is this user. Insert. And the only other thing I did was this is not a string. This is an object ID. So I replaced this with an object ID. Clicked on update. And now it worked. This is what was expected. Do we understand this now? Can we proceed to actually writing some code next? Let's see. All right. 90% is good. Still not great, but okay, let's proceed. Let's understand how can we do the same via Node.js next. I repeat, there is one more slide here which explains what CRUD is. I would assume you guys already understand this. CRUD means create, read, update, and delete. There are 4 things that you do when your backend talks to your database. You create a to-do, you get the to-do, you update the to-do, you delete the to-do. These are what are called CRUD operations. So we're trying to understand now next, how can in our backend application we connect to a database? How can we do CRUD operations to a database using the backend? C stands for create, R stands for read, U stands for update, D stands for delete. Let's do that. Let's create the backend of a to-do application. This whole slide will take you through that. I would urge you to code along with me. I have put all the detailed steps here, so I think this shouldn't be too difficult. The thing to learn would be this external library called Mongoose. In fact, even before we start, I would urge you to read through the docs of this a bit. Okay, what is this Mongoose library? Just like we had used Express library until now, what happened over here? We would look at it, this is their docs. Okay, this is how you use the Express library to create an HTTP server. Can we similarly look at what is the Mongoose library and how can I use it to connect to a database? Let's see. It says this is how you can import it to the top of your JavaScript file. We are not using Deno, which is another runtime. So let's ignore the second section here. Then it says here, put this at the top of your file. Call mongoose.connect with your connection string. We already have a connection string, hai ki nahi? The connection string that I shared in the chat. So it says apne Node.js code mein, in your Node.js code, put mongoose.connect and put the MongoDB URL here. The only extra thing here is it also asks you to specify ke kaun se database se connect karna hai. Where should I put the data? Which database should I put the data in? Should I put it in the to-dos, this person's database? Should I put it in to-do app database? Should I put it in with this database? So whenever we call this function, which we will be very soon, we will add our MongoDB URL / the name of the database jahan main data dalna chahta hu. Which one of these databases do I want to put data in? Someone created a Berozgar database as well. Then it says, यार एक model define कर लो. Show me what does your schema look like. Show me आप कैसा डेटा डालना चाह रहे हो. What are you trying to put inside the database? Are you trying to create blog posts where let's say the author ID is an object ID. So ignore this field for now. This might be a little complicated. The title is a string, body is a string, date is a date, things like these. Define the schema for me upfront. What data are you trying to put in the database? And then lastly, once you have defined the schema, you can do a bunch of things now. You can start to, the approach that we will be taking is we will create a model and then call a few functions on top of it. Hopefully we were able to explore the library a little bit. Baki we will write the code and try to understand how can you first create the schema like this, then create something called the model like this, and then we will start to call functions like model.find, model.find1, insert or create, whatever that function is. It's not in these docs, but basically let's try to now use this library and start to connect our backend application to the MongoDB database. Let's start slow. Let's initialize an empty TypeScript project. I'm going to open a terminal. Put it on the right. Again, all the final code is already on GitHub. It's present in the first slide, but let's do it again. I'll do it again. You will do it for the first time. I'm going to call it week 7 1 live. This is the name of my folder. I'm going to go into this folder and I'm going to open this in Visual Studio Code. You should do the same if you're trying to code along. All right. I'm going to open Visual Studio Code on the right. I'm going to open the steps on the left. What is step 1? Initialize an empty package.json, that is npm init -y. When I do that, an empty package.json is initialized. What is initialized? An empty package.json file is initialized for me. Then add the dependencies to our projects. We are going to install Express and Mongoose. These are the two external libraries we will be using. We will be using a third one. Can you guess already what that is? We will be using authentication today. So we will be using the JSON Web Token library that we used last week. I haven't yet installed it, but we will be installing it very soon. Step 1 and step 2 is done. Hopefully these were simple enough. Step 3 is create a skeleton for the 4 routes. We need these 4 routes to be present. So create an index.js file. And inside this, create the skeleton for your Express application. Do you understand what that means? Okay, do something, create the initial code. Okay, const express equal to require express. Then create 4 endpoints. Const app equal to express. Let me turn off AI over here. And then do a app.post /signup. That's the first endpoint that we have. App.post /signin. That's the second endpoint that we'll be creating. App.post /todo, an endpoint that the user can hit to create a to-do in the database. I repeat, this is the endpoint that our user will hit from the front end. Eventually we will have a front end for this as well. User will hit this endpoint to create a to-do in the database. And lastly, want to get all the to-dos for a user. Both of these endpoints will be authenticated. Only if a user is logged in, can they create a to-do. Only if a user is logged in, can they get the existing set of to-dos. So both the endpoints that you see over here will eventually be authenticated. We will see how these two will be non-authenticated endpoints. All of this code was already present here. If you weren't able to follow along, you can just copy the code from this solution thing as well. Very simple code we've written until now. Just the skeleton of our application. Do we understand this much? Let's do a small checkpoint here. Is this clear? All right, this is clear. Cool. Whew. That would have been scary. Cool. All right. Next step is, okay, now we will add all of our database logic in a separate file. Abhi tak what we have been doing is, we have been shoving everything in the same file. Let's not do that today. Let's create a new file, a fresh file here called db.js, database.js, where I will put all of my database stuff. Can I put it all here in index.js? I can. But to structure our code better, we are going to put all of our database logic over here. Here is where I will import the Mongoose library. I will write const mongoose equal to require mongoose. And now I will start to create the schema that we were talking about. What were we saying? What did the Mongoose docs say? They say you first have to create the schema of your tables. You have to share. What does the schema look like? What data are you putting in there? Now this will confuse a few people because initially I said MongoDB is schemaless. And यहाँ पे I am defining the schema of my database. So what is happening? Good question. We will answer if feels like a question you want answered, or figure it out yourself. Why are we defining the schema over here given MongoDB is schemaless? Initially I said, it has very flexible schema. You can put whatever data you want there. But when you are using the Mongoose library, you are defining the schema. Good one. Thought experiment for today. You should think of. Cool. How can you define the schema for Mongoose? Number 1, Mongoose, this library exports a class called schema. It exports a class called schema that you can use to now define the schema of your application. KR, my user's schema looks like this. What does my user schema look like? Const user equal to new schema. What all data do I have in my table? Let me see. What did I put in MongoDB? I had for the users table, someone deleted it. What was it if you remember? It was email, which let's say was a string, and password, which let's say was a string. And what was the third field? Name, which is a string. Fairly simple schema that I have. What does schema mean? कि finally database में कैसा structure जाएगा? What will be the structure of the data that reaches the database? I have defined the user schema over here. And what is the second schema I am defining? I am defining the to-do schema, which is easy bits here are the title. Yeah, the title will be a string. And another thing, let's say whatever, done, which will be a boolean. These are the easy bits. The slightly tricky bit is the user ID. The user ID is not a string, if you remember. The user ID was not a string. If I open MongoDB Compass, what was the user ID here? It was not a string, but what was its type? Its type was object ID. So over here, I will say the user ID is not string, but object ID, which again I have to import from Mongoose. So const object ID equal to mongoose dot object ID. This is my schema. This is the schema of my application. This is me defining कि finally data कैसा दिखेगा in the database. That's the easy bit. If you want to use this schema in your code over here, eventually you want something like this. कि यार call a function like user.insert. I repeat, यहाँ पे you will eventually call a function like user.insert, and you would hope कि whatever data you pass here, Harkirat, and password and name, email, whatever data you pass here somehow reaches the database. है ना? You want a high level function like this over here, so that whenever this function is called, it is the same as putting a new entry over here. I can put an entry from the MongoDB GUI, or hopefully, what do I want to do? I want to do this insert on my sign up endpoint. Whenever the user hits the sign up endpoint, whenever a user is signing up on my platform, I want to insert their entry into the database. So I want this db.js file. क्या schema तो मैंने लिख दिया. I have written the schema. I want something जिसके ऊपर मैं ये functions call कर पाऊँ. I want a model. I want a data model on which I can call these functions. That is what mongoose.model returns you. This mongoose.model says कि यार आपको कौन सी उसमें डालना है. Which collection do you want to put into? In my case, I want to put it in the users collection. I want to put my data in the users collection, and this is the schema for my model. कि यार this is the structure of the data that I want to put in. This is the name of the database that I want to put it in, or more specifically the collection I want to put it in. And similarly, the to-do model I also define over here. ये दोनों जो हैं, this and this, thankfully export functions like these. कि user model dot create, where I can simply pass in whatever email, whatever the email is, password, so on and so forth. This model, mongoose.model, lets me actually insert data in this specific collection with this specific schema. That is what these two lines of code do. Now, if we were shoving everything in the same file, अगर ये सारा code, if all of this code was written over here, our life would have been easy. But since we want to separate the logic, we want some basic file structuring, we will have to export both of these. This file will export these variables so that they can be imported over here. So I can call user model.insert. I repeat, from this file that we have written, I want to export. And how can you export in JavaScript? You can write something like this. Module.exports equal to user model is this user model field, and to-do model is this to-do model field. What am I doing? I am exporting not a string. If I want, I can export a string as well, Harkirat. If I want, I can export a number as well, 1. What am I exporting? I am exporting an object जिसमें the first key is user model, the second key is to-do model, so that I can import these in index.js. In index.js, I can write const user model, comma, to do model equal to require dot slash db. This is how you do imports and exports in JavaScript. Just like we are importing something from the Express library, now I am importing some things from this db.js file, so that I can, call dot create on this user model, call dot update on this user model. This user model will give me high level functions. What do I mean when I say high level functions? I mean कि I don't have to worry about कि ये MongoDB तक पहुंच कैसे रहा है. I don't have to worry about how is this reaching MongoDB. I can simply call user model dot insert, and this will automatically insert the data in the database. Do we understand? Let me recap. What did we do in this section? We wanted to initialize the schema of our application in a fresh file. So I created a fresh file. I imported this schema variable from Mongoose. I can import it like this, or I can import it, be a little fancy and import it like this as well. Either is fine. I'm going to import it like this. Okay, schema variable class and object ID, which is also, they haven't put the type over here. I would assume this is also a class or a function, one of these two. Most probably this will be a class as well. I could be wrong. I import both of these from Mongoose. I create a new user schema. I create a new to-dos schema. I define two models over here on top of the schema. Okay, ye raha schema. This is what the data should look like. This is where I want to put the data. This is what the to-do data would look like. This is where I want to put the to-do data. Users over here means I want to put data in this users collection. To-do, if I write to-dos 2 over here, then it will start to store data in the to-dos 2 collection over here. So you have to clearly define कि आप कहाँ डालना चाह रहे हो, यहाँ पे या यहाँ पे. Where are you putting the data? And then I just export both of these from here and I import both of these over here. Do we understand this? Can we proceed to writing the application logic now? Everything after this is actually fairly simple. This is the only complicated bit of today. But we do understand. 90% is beautiful. Beautiful. So let's finish this off. What do you think happens in the sign up endpoint? ये तो simple ही है, as simple as it gets. Const username equal to rec.body.username. Const password equal to rec.body.password. Const name equal to rec.body.name. Get all three of these fields and simply call user model.insert. Here I want to insert something with this username. Sorry, what was the schema again? Email, password and name. So let's change this also to email, password and name. I want to insert something with this email and this password and this name. Can you already guess, okay, is this a synchronous function or is this an asynchronous function? User model.insert needs to talk to a database that's in Bahrain. If you remember, I initialized my database in Bahrain. A request needs to go out from my machine to a machine in Bahrain, and the insert needs to happen over there. Even when I'm in MongoDB Compass, when I'm in this GUI over here, I can't open it for some reason. When I'm in this GUI over here, when I add data and click on insert, the data actually, this request actually goes to a server in Bahrain. Takes like 1 or 2 seconds for that to happen, which is why, can you guess already, this will be an asynchronous function call. This will return a promise. I repeat, if I write const p equal to this thing, then the value of this p, the type of this p will actually, it says any over here, but it will actually be a promise. And hence, it is a good idea for me to await this promise. I repeat, it is a good idea for me to await this promise. I can totally get away by not awaiting it. क्या insert करने को भेज तो दी request. Hopefully the insert will happen. Let me quickly let the user know rest.json message you are logged in. What am I doing over here? I am calling user model.insert, but I am not awaiting on it. I am not waiting before letting the user know you are logged in. This is problematic because what if this request fails? What if there is some error for you connecting to the database? Then the user will think they have logged in, but you did not await this call. आपने wait नहीं किया database में entry होने का. You did not await कि is this a successful call or is this a failed call? So even though when you write the code like this, it will work for you because rarely does an insert fail because of a database being down. But an insert might fail because you are duplicating the email entry. You are sending the same email again. I have not yet put constraints on this schema. I repeat, I did not say that email needs to be unique. But if you look on the left, I had an easy schema, I had a hard schema. In the hard schema, the type of email was a little different. I said your email is not simply a string. Its type is string, but it is also unique, which means you can't insert twice in the database the same entry. You can't put the same email twice if you are sending it from the Node.js code. If you are sending it through the Node.js code, it will block you from sending, the same email twice. So this request might fail in that case. So you should await on this specific insert. And to do that, you have to convert this into an async function. So this is the right code. Okay, make the function handler an async function. Make the request handler an async function. Await on the database call before you let the user know okay, you are logged in. And ideally, if this request fails, we should send the user back a better message. I have this in the final set of to-dos. If you go to the next slide, I have written if now a user tries to insert the same email twice, you will see that the application crashes. How can we fix that? We will come to that later. Do we understand the first endpoint? The first endpoint, one thing is missing. Can you guess already? Why will this not work? Because I'm parsing the body. And you can only parse the body if you are using the express.json middleware. If you don't use this middleware, you can't parse JSON body. Given that, this is enough. This is all we had to do to implement our sign up endpoint. Can we do a quick poll? Do we understand the sign up endpoint? When the user hits the sign up endpoint now, an entry will go to our database with the username and the password. There are still ugly things over there, which are also mentioned in the next slide. Things like plain text passwords. We'll discuss them when the time comes. Sign up is cool. Can you guess what sign in will do? I need to check, is there a user with this username and password? Let me hide the sign up. Let me implement the sign in. User will now only send me username and password. I don't need their email. I don't need their name. And what do I have to do? I have to check, is there a user who has this username and password in the database? I have to read. Which part of CRUD do I have to do? Do I have to create? No, I have to read. How can I do that? Const user equal to user model dot find one, where the email is this email that the user gave me and the password is this password that the user gave me. If a user exists with this username and password, then I can return them what? I need to return them a token. Do you remember authentication from last week? Last week we discussed if someone hits your sign in endpoint, you have to create a token for them and return them the token. This token is what they send in future authenticated requests /to-do/to-dos, these requests. So what do I have to do over here? I have to generate a token. How did we generate a token? Using JWT, JSON Web Tokens. So what is the next step over here? Okay, if the user isn't logged in, that's so simple. If the user's credentials are incorrect, simply let them know message incorrect credentials. And ideally, give them a bad status code as well. Tell them, our status code 403. 403 means you are not authorized, you are sending me something wrong. So else statement is sorted. If they give you the wrong credentials, you return them this. If they give you the right credentials though, even when they eventually log in from a UI like this, what will happen? User will eventually, when you convert this to a full stack application, user will come here, put in an email, put in a password, click on the login button. What will happen when they click on the login button? A request will come over here. We will parse their email, parse their password, find, is this user already existing in our database? And if that is true, generate a token for them. How will we generate the token? Using the JSON web token library, just like we did last week. So for this, if you don't understand this, you should go back to the last week's video. How can you use JSON web tokens? It's pretty simple. Const JWT equal to require JSON web tokens. This specific import, what did I do? First I did npm install JSON web token, installed the JSON web token library. Number two, at the top of my file, I imported the JSON web token library. Const JWT equal to require JSON web token. And whenever you are using the JWT library, what do you have to do? You have to create a JWT secret, which should be a random password that you have, so that whenever you are generating the token, you sign it using this JWT secret. Whenever you are verifying the token, you verify it using this JWT secret. So given I have imported this at the top, imported the JWT secret over here, can I now say token is what? JWT.sign. I will sign a token using the JWT protocol whose payload will be what? What will the payload of this be? Payload का मतलब क्या है? Okay, what do you want to store? What JSON data do you want to store here? Last week we were storing the username. This week, what do you think we should store? How can you uniquely identify a user? Using their ID. So I will store user._ID. If you remember, the entries in the database are uniquely identified by what? By this _ID field. If this is in the JSON web token, then I can always find out who is this user. In the users table, if this ID I have in my JSON web token, I can always find out who is this user. So this user.find1, this in this token, what is my payload? What am I trying to sign? What am I creating a token using this user's ID? And then I can simply return back the token to the user. So this is how you implement the sign up and the sign in endpoint. Let's test both of these out and then we will proceed. Let's not worry too much about anything else. Let me also log something here. Console.log user. So we can actually see when the user signs in, do we hit the database? When we hit the database, what do we get back from the database? What does the database return over here? Is there a bug in this statement? Is there a bug in this statement? What does user model.find1 return? It returns a promise. It is not a synchronous call. It has to go through the database, go to the database in Bahari and respond back. So I have to await this as well. All database calls you have to await. And if you ever want await inside a function, that function needs to become async. So this is what the final thing looks like. This now I think is correct code. Let's see if that is the case or not. Let's first test it out. Then we will look at the code again. To recap, I have implemented a sign up endpoint, which puts some data in the database. I have implemented a sign in endpoint, which fetches some data from the database. And if the data is correct, returns a token to the user. If a data is incorrect, returns them a message that says incorrect credentials. If I run node index.js and open Postman on the left, opened Postman on the right, let's say. Let me send the first request, a post request to /signup with an email being harkirat123@gmail.com, a password being 123123, a name being Harkirat. What happens when I sign up? What should happen? An entry should go into the database with this email and this password. Ideally, hopefully, let's see. Click on send. Backend server crashes. It says user model.insert is not a function. It says user model.insert is not a function. It is create, I think. My bad. That is why you need TypeScript. If we had TypeScript here, we would have known immediately. Let's try that one more time. Replace the user model with insert with user model.create. If I send this request, it is hung. It is not able to send the request. Why is it hung? Where can it be hung? It can only be hung at this point. I am sure control reached here, here got stuck over here. Why? Because my code doesn't even know where the MongoDB database is. I never did mongoose.connect. I never did mongoose.connect with my database credentials. उसको क्या पता कहाँ डालना है? It is trying to put it in my local database. I don't have a local MongoDB database, which is why I need to connect to the right database. I need to tell it, okay, hey, you need to connect to my database credentials, which I'm now going to get from chat because I remember posting them in chat a while back. There we go. Paste it. Oh, can't copy from Zoom chat, can you? Right click, copy, paste. There we go. These are my database credentials. And if you remember, what did I say? Okay, one extra thing you have to do, which is what is the name of your database? This is my cluster. Oh, sorry about that. This is my cluster credentials. And what is the database where I'm putting data? Let me call it todo-harkirath-2. Thankfully, it will automatically create the collection database for me if it doesn't exist. I can name it anything. Let me name it this: to-do collection harkirath 222. It will automatically, to-do harkirath 222, it will automatically create that database for me. Now let's try to run it again. Node-index.js, open Postman. Postman on the right, code on the left. If I now send a sign up request, it says you are logged in, but has my data reached my database? Hopefully it has. This basically means this request succeeded correctly. So hopefully the data has reached the database. How can I confirm? Let me open Compass, let me refresh. And do I see? I see a to-do harkirath 2222, this table, this database right here. If I go to the users here, I see the first entry that I made. Is this entry harkirath123@gmail.com, 123213 password, name Harkirath? Is this the same as the data that I sent in Postman? It looks correct. Let me send another data, another email, another user. Let me create a few oh, oopsie daisy. Finally it crashed. Duplicate entry. I'm sure some of you are also inserting. So there was a duplicate entry error that happened. So the server crashed. Basically, I was putting in an email that already existed. 1213. This email already existed over here. So my backend over here crashed. We will get to how to fix that eventually. But can you see a clear error over here that says duplicate key error collection, this thing? So when I tried to put a user with an email that already exists over here, the backend crashed, which is fine. I can just restart the backend for now. Sign up process is clear. Data is getting persisted in the database. Sign in process will look like what? Sign in with the correct username and password. What was the password for this user? It was 123213. So let me just copy the password from the database, put it over here. If I try to sign in, backend crashes again. It says secret or private key must have a value. When I called jwt.sign, I forgot to pass in the jwt_secret. It crashed again for me. Why this time? Because when I was calling jwt.sign, I forgot to send in the password using which it should sign. That was clearly what the warning or error was also telling me. It says secret or private key must have a value. The jwt.sign function expects payload and secret or private key. I forgot to send this secret or private key, which is why, it failed. Now let me restart the server again. Notice our application is crashing, but I don't have to re-put the data. It is persisting in the database. That is the whole point of a database. Your backend can crash as much as you want. Data is persisted separately. I don't have to re-sign up again. If I sign in this time, I get back a token. Sign up and sign in is working as expected. If I send in the wrong credentials, it says incorrect credentials. If I send in the right credentials, it gives me back my token. Can we do a quick poll? Do we understand how to sign up and sign in and persist your user to the database? %85 understand. I'm sure there is some simple thing that I glanced over during the testing. So let me just spend 2 minutes before I proceed. Secret key. You are using URI, connection is not complete. That is correct. Didn't understand the sync and async thing. Small recap and slow. All right, let me quickly recap. What is dash dash v? That's probably the version, some extra field that it puts in there. Slow. I will just Google after the class. Then put the app.listen dot then, otherwise people will slow connection. Will see the. All right. What did you do secret? So I think most people are now not. They understand the database part. They don't understand authentication part, which we did last week. So let me quickly recap everything. I'm not going to share too much about authentication. We did it last week. We have a sign up, and for everyone who understands, can you finish the rest of the endpoints? This guy and this guy shouldn't be too difficult. Again, just have to do a bunch of database calls like on the to-do model. Okay. Let me recap everything for everyone else. What does this file look like? We have a bunch of imports at the top of the file. Express is our HTTP framework. These are our models that we just created in db.js. This is the JWT library. This is the Mongoose library. This is the JWT secret. At the top of my index.js, I say, I want to connect to the MongoDB URL. Now someone pointed out correctly, this is also an async function. This should ideally be awaited. Someone pointed out this. Someone said, Kira, this you should first wait for this to happen, only then start your HTTP server. That is correct. We are not doing that yet. But yes, you should wait for the connection to happen, only then start your HTTP server. Figure out how can you do that. For now, this works as well. I say I want to connect to this MongoDB cluster on this specific database. I initialize the app variable. I say I want to use express.json as my middleware. The first thing I do is on the sign up endpoint, whenever the sign up endpoint is called, I get the email, password and name, and I call user model.create, but user model.create returns me a promise. It does not return me the actual data. It does not return me when I do a const res equal to this thing and try to log res. You will see this result, this res variable will log something like a one entry has been put into the database. But that, how will I know one entry has been put into the database? Until I await for this call to succeed. Unless this call actually succeeds, unless there is the email, password and name actually reach the database, I don't know how many rows were updated. Was there an error? Was there not an error? So I need to await this function call. If I don't await this function call, then you are basically saying this will fire off a request to the database. A request will go to the database. You did not await that request to finish. So, control will reach here. You will let the user know everything is correct. But what if the database is down? What if the database does not respond for 10 seconds? Then this specific call would fail. Let's see this in action. Let me change this. Let me not connect. Let me do this. Okay, I removed the connection completely. Let me not await on user model.create. I am not awaiting on this call. Should this fail ideally? Should the sign up endpoint fail? It should, because the database itself is not connected. But does it fail? Let's see. If I restart this and go to Postman and send a request to sign up, it says you are logged in. Even though database to hai nahi, we are not even connecting to. Versus if I await on this, let first entry will be put in the database. Only if the entry has been put in the database will we be returning back this to the user. Now if I restart this and send a request, notice request is stuck. Request is for the data to go into the model. Only when the data will go into the model will this request say you are logged in, and now it crashed. So you are not awaiting for the result. Even if it fails, you will let the user know you are logged in. That is why you need to await over here. And similarly over here in this, we get the email and password. We check, does this user exist? Here also, you will not get any data unless you await on the find one function. You have to wait for the database to return you the result. Then you get that result. We also log it over here. We check, does this user exist? If this user exists, we sign a token for. Similar to, let's say, encrypting their user ID. It is not that. You should go back to last week's video. It is similar to you encrypting the user ID and returning it back to the user, so that in these future requests, the user can send us their token. This token that we return to the user, we hope user will send us back this token in the future requests so that we can identify them over here and over here. Let's do a poll. Do we understand this now? Do we understand what was happening over here, which was a doubt a few people had? The answer here is we are encrypting, but let's say we are encrypting the user's ID using this secret so that later when they hit our to-do endpoint, we can verify it's the same user, because we will expect them to send us back the same token. Can we do a quick poll? All right, 90%, 88%, decent. All right, let's go through a few more slides. Then I will, answer a few questions or doubts. I don't think we have too much time left. Let's see, where are we? We have implemented the sign up and the sign in endpoint. The next step is this: implementing an authentication middleware, which will be very simple for people who have done last week's video, very difficult for people who haven't. So now both of these endpoints need to be authenticated. And what did we learn last week? Last week we said, you can write all your authentication logic here, or you can structure it in a middleware. So you can create a middleware called auth. And what does a middleware take as an input? Go 3 weeks back. It takes a request, a response, and a next object as input. It takes 3 inputs. And what is this guy supposed to do? Go back to last week's video in authentication. We said, we will expect the user to give us the token in the token header. जो उनको sign in से वापस मिला, the token they got back while signing in, we expect them to give us back that token in all future authenticated requests. अब उसको अगर to do बनाना है, if they want to create a to do, or if they want to fetch their existing to do's, they have to send their token to us. So const token equal to rec.headers.token. And after I fetch this token, what do I have to do? Const decoded data equal to jwt.verify. I have to verify is this token correct given the JWT secret? क्या ये token मैंने ही encrypt किया था? Is this token encrypted by me only over here? When the user signed in, I encrypted a token for them. Here we verify, is this token correct for this JWT secret? And if it is, then you can say the user is logged in. So you can say if decoded data is correct, then rec.userid equal to decoded data.userid. What am I doing here? What does a middleware do? It can pass data to the next function call. On this /todos endpoint, we are going to very soon introduce this authentication middleware. On this getTodos endpoint, we are going to introduce this authentication middleware. So I want the request object over here to have rec.userid. I want if the control reached here, then the user ID field is populated on rec. ये authenticated request है. If the control has reached here, this should be an authenticated request. It should have a user ID field, which is what I set over here. And then I call what? I call next. If this feels a little overwhelming, we discussed this last week. We implemented the same middleware last week. So you should go back to last week's video. Else we return res.status 403.json message incorrect credentials. The user has sent us wrong credentials. We say, bhai nahi, we are not logging you in because you have sent us the wrong credentials. If they have sent us the right credentials, we call the next thing in the callback stack. If the to-dos endpoint is called, first the authentication middleware will get called. Only if this checks correctly that the user is correct, this is a logged in user, will it call the next function, which will call this guy. And over here I can get access to rec.userid like this. Same thing over here. And given this user ID, I can just hit the database, get their details, or put the details in the database. Let me simply just return them back their user ID for now, so we can actually see this in action. in both the post/todo endpoint and the get/todo endpoint, I am not doing anything right now. I am not putting a to-do in the database. I am not getting a to-do from the database. I am simply saying, okay, I will first wait for the authentication middleware to tell me, is this user logged in or not? If this user is logged in, then I will simply return them back their user ID for now. Nothing else. Fairly simple. Let's see if this works. Let's see if the authentication middleware has been written correctly. If I write node-index.js now, number one, let me sign up using a new email. Let me uncomment this first. Only then will it work. Let me sign up again. If I sign up, it says you are logged in. Let me sign in. It gives me back a token. Now in future authenticated requests, if I want to send a request to create a to-do, if I want to send a post request to to-do, in the header, I need to send what? What was the auth middleware expecting? It is expecting you to send a token in the token header. So what header do I need to create? I need to create a token header. What data do I need to send in? The JWT that I got while I was signing in. While I was signing in, I got back this token. While I am accessing this guy or this guy, I need to send back that token. And that is what I'm doing here by pasting it in this token section. Now, if I send a request to /todo, it says JWT must be provided. Headers, token, rec.headers.token. Send. I am missing something obvious again. Headers.token, not header.token. That's my bad. Let's try that one more time. If I now send this request, it returns me back an empty object. It doesn't return me back the user ID. Why? Because the user ID that I'm encoding here needs to be converted to the string format. When I'm trying to do jwt.sign, I am signing user._id, and user._id is actually, of type object. It's a class. It's an object of a class, object ID class. It is not a string. If you go back here, what is an ID? What is user.id? It is an object ID. How is that represented in JavaScript? User._id is represented as an object. If you try to encode an object, it becomes undefined, which is why there is a toString function on this object, thankfully, that returns me a string. That is what I have to encode finally. So to show you again, if I do console.log user._id, this user._id is not a string. It is an object ID. It is the object of a class, most probably, or a class in itself, most probably an object of a class, which has a toString function, which actually prints the user ID in string format. So that is what I've done over here now to encode the right thing. Now, if I try one more time, I first sign up using a random email. I then sign in using the same email. I take this token and I put it in the headers, and then I call the to-dos endpoint with this header in there. When I send this request, it says the route is incorrect. When I send this request, it still returns me an empty object. I don't know what the bug is now. Let's see. Can anyone guess? I don't know. I will just debug right now with you guys. All right. Anyone know what the issue is? JSON. Get. Nope. Bearer. You didn't pass the header. I did. Pass the header over here. Bearer. No. Get route. Decoded value. I see a bunch of things. Encrypt. Read from database. No. Let's log the payload here when I'm signing in. What is the payload I'm signing in with? it is this thing right here. Let's see, is it logging in with the right thing? Node index.js. Let me send a request to /signin. And I log, this is what I'm encoding in the JWT. Let me open the JWT on jwt.io. I will open the JWT on jwt.io and see what does it get decoded back to. And if I paste it over here, it returns me the ID. So everything is fine. ID. What did I encode? ID. What am I getting when I am decoding? I say rec.userid equal to decoded data dot, it should be ID. I was doing decoded data dot user ID. That was the fault. Now if I restart this, and thankfully I can just send a request directly to todo. It returns me back the user ID. Given that you have the user ID over here, can you guess how can you put a todo? Should be fairly simple, right? Todo model dot create, and here you put the, const whatever title equal to rec.body.title, and you put the title over here and the user ID over here. Can you guess how can you get all the to-dos for this user? Should be simple, right? Const users equal to await todo model dot find, where the user ID is this user ID. So that is how I can get all the to-dos of a user and maybe return them back to the user. This is how I can create a new to-do for the user. The final code is here as well, which pretty much does the same thing. If you look at the final code, oh, I did not put it here, but here you get the idea. Let me just show it to you in the week 7 Mongo repository. If I go to index.js here, this is what the post to do endpoint looks like. I have first separately defined this auth middleware. I define it in a separate file. I repeat, even in the official repository that we have in auth.js, I defined the auth middleware separately in a separate file. All that logic I wrote in a separate file to structure our project better. And if I go back to index.js here, you will notice I import auth at the top from this ./auth.js file. I import auth and JWT secret over here. And then this is the post to do endpoint. This is the get to do's endpoint. This will create a new to do. We get the title. We get whether or not this to do is already done. We insert it in the table. Then we return the user back to do created. And over here, we find all the to do's for this specific user ID. We return them to the user. That is how you create a basic backend with the database of a to-do application. The code is present over here. You should read through it and then code it yourself. Few other things that I've written over here are some things we will cover tomorrow. What are the bad things in this code and how can you improve them? You should go through this code by tomorrow if you want to, do some slightly advanced things tomorrow. All right. We'll also maybe recap this a little bit tomorrow. Cool. Let's do a poll. How many of us understood today's class? How many of us were able to, I have put screenshots here of, testing. When you eventually test the application, you can create a to-do. It'll return you something like this. To-do created. You can fetch all the to-dos. It will return you all your to-dos in the database. Alrighty. 86% understood, 14% did not. So now Q&A. How can I help answer questions? And one thing I would say is, if you did not go through last week's class, then of course, today authentication will be a little difficult. So you should go through last week's class. And everyone else, any questions? All right. Notion docs. I know that you can search for courses you don't have access to. It's fine. The video doesn't open, right? So it doesn't matter. GSOC, let me post. Oh, you already have access to last year's or last cohort's classes. Let me do a few more ad hoc contribution videos. That's probably what you're looking for. Notion doc. Live stream is public again. You have to remove some parts. URL._ID is the same as _ID in the database that we are seeing. No, in the database also you are seeing underscore ID only. In the database also it is underscore ID. User.underscore ID is the same thing. Notion doc. Assignment completed. Great. And Notion doc. Cool. Going to answer a few Notion docs starting from the first one. Can you please upload today's live class as soon as possible by tomorrow? So yes, let me do that. I have no idea on what hex.com. I know you've been asking for a while. But yeah. Oh, yeah. I've heard of this person. Let me come back to this. We can Google this together. Okay, close. What is the difference between my code and your code? Let's see. Title, this thing, description, string, done, false, type, object ID, ref, user. When you're defining your schema, you have defined the schema with a reference to user. Let's see. Ref in schema MongoDB. This looks like a relationship, but most probably isn't a relationship. Let's see. This is my code. This is your code. I mean to say user ID in your code refers to the object ID type. And in my code, it also refers to the object ID of the, in my code, hold on. To do schema is schema, title, description, done. What is this? I think your syntax is a little incorrect. I think you meant something like this. Did you mean something like to do schema? This is my schema. And I think you meant something like this. Done is string and user ID is this thing. Is this what you meant? Most probably this is what you meant. And yes, your schema is slightly better. This is exactly what we will discuss tomorrow. This is a relationship. What you are doing over here is you are telling MongoDB कि यार ये जो user ID है ना, it refers to this user's schema over here. This is exactly one of the to-dos that we have for tomorrow. Let me take you through them. These are the improvements that you can make, and one of these improvements is relationships in Mongo. That is what you're introducing over here. I think this is what you meant. Let me know if this is your original thing. Looks incorrect to me. This is your original thing, most probably incorrect. This is the right thing. This is probably what you meant. And this is defining a relationship between the to-do schema and the user schema, which is good. Tomorrow we'll come to why, but long story short, this is good because it will not let you insert anything in the to-do schema unless there is a corresponding user. It will constrain you from putting something in the users table unless it is the user already exists. That is why you use relationships. That is what you have defined over here. All right, moving on. This is done. Request, can you please? Okay, I'll try to upload today's class. So today's class will definitely be uploaded very quickly on harkirat.classx.co.in. So just try to find them there. They get uploaded easily over there. On the other platform, they take slightly longer time. Assignment, please add a start if it is good. Haha. I don't understand why we are using password to find user. After the password is hashed, it is not possible to find a user with the provided hash. You are right. So how do you do that? After the password is hashed, you can't find the user in the database. So how do you find them? If you have thought of the question, think of the answer. We will discuss tomorrow. But you should understand how can you try to Google it and understand, or maybe without Googling from first principles. How can you hash the password yet check if the user exists in the database? It's very easy. Think of it. I added a username field in the user schema so that we can easily find the user for task assignment. Field to user schema so you can easily find the user for a task. ये point मुझे समझ नहीं आया भाई. During the sign up request, I first checked whether the email already exists in the database. If it does, the process stops and no user is created. This will help prevent app crashes. You can do that, but you then have a custom logic. What you should do is this. Okay, you should still do this. Put a try catch over here. Put this inside a try catch so that if there is an error, you catch that error and let the user know, okay, hey, there is an error. The other thing you can do is something like this. Okay, if there is an error, you catch that error right over here and let the user know, hey, the application crashed, or whatever. The user with that username already exists. You shouldn't yourself write custom logic to first check in the database. Does the user exist? Find user, and then create it. Number one, you're doing 2 round trips in that case. Probably that happens here also under the hood. I could be wrong. But yeah, you've already added the uniqueness constraint. You have already added the uniqueness constraint over here. So you shouldn't need to recreate, check over here, the Mongoose library will do it for you. And just put it inside a try catch so it doesn't block, so it doesn't go. If hash password saved in the user database, I hash password inside the database, that is good. I added fields like done by and created at, that is good. Signed the token with the email as well. Sign the token with email. It will not help. You shouldn't do that. You should only store the ID. You shouldn't sign the token or the email. I made minor changes to the schema, added trim. That's good. All right, that's pretty good. And I think it will work without toString as well. I just thought a little extra in there. Yeah, it'll work without toString. That was just my first guess of what was wrong over there. Done. All right, there was only 3 Notion logs, but posted it 100 times. Just post it once. I will see it. All right. Yeah, you can drop off. Like, class is done. I'm just answering questions now. Oh, class is obviously done. Wow, people actually stay back. Good, obedient people. I like it. All right. We'll do one more round, then we'll call it. What else is difficult? Whatever feels weird, let me know. Anything related to the class I can help with. Don't post Notion docs twice. I will get to them. It just gets a little hard to do both. Today's class was long, I say. I pinged Aryan, you said, but he's not responding back. He will, don't worry. When you move to production, what will you add? Network access. Yeah, you will make your MongoDB cluster only available to your servers. So you will change the network access field such that the MongoDB cluster is only accessible from your backend servers. It is not accessible from, any place else like we did right now. All right, too many Notion docs, most probably repeated. You guys have a bad habit of pasting the doc again and again. How to send headers in headers? How to send token in header through code? Oh, that's fairly simple, right? When you're doing axios.post, whatever you are sending the request to, google.com, the object that you have over here that you're sending over here, you can send headers like this. Or when you're doing fetch, whatever, google.com, you can pass in the headers like this, token, and then whatever token you want to send over here. So that's how you send tokens through headers in the code. User ID underscore ID. What is the underscore ID in the database? I don't see an underscore ID in the database at all. I only see underscore ID, which is this thing right here. All right. Cool. All righty. Last set of Notion docs here. Assignment looks good. I haven't seen through it. The password is hash. We will check the auth code. Yeah, let's look at how you've done that. If you use, yeah, exactly. There you go. So you've done the exact thing over here, and this is, if whoever was asking the question around how do you do authentication, hashing, if you want to know before tomorrow, this is how you do it. Questions from Kirat. Okay. What is life, universe, and everything? What is the bearer token difference between authorization and authentication in the backend and the front end? The bearer token is basically when you are sending headers, you first specify what type of token it is. There are various types of tokens the user might have sent, or the backend might have sent you. Bearer is one category of tokens. API key might be another thing. This is an API key. So when you are passing in tokens, you tell it, yeah, this is the type of token that I'm sending. Bearer is the most common one. I am bearing the token. So that is why the field, you will see a bearer space the actual token, because you tell the backend, this is my type of the token. This is my actual token. So that is what a bearer token means. You are telling the backend, this is the type of my token. What are the other types? API key is one, common type of token that a backend might return you, that send it back. Authentication versus authorization. Authentication means logging in. I always get confused. One of them means you're actually logging in, logging out the ability that you had. Authorization means, are you authorized on this resource? I am logged into ChatGPT. I am authenticated on ChatGPT. Am I authorized to access admin.chatgpt.com? I am not. Is Sam Altman authenticated on ChatGPT? Hopefully he is from his Mac machine. Is he authorized on admin. Admin? Does he have some more permissions than me? Yes, he does. So authorization means how much more access do you, what access do you have on this backend? Authentication means you are able to identify to the backend that you are this, but what authorization do you have is different for different people. What is role-based access and how is it handled in the front end and the backend? As the name suggests, I am an admin of app.100xsteps.com. If I go to app.100xsteps.com/admin, I see something over there. When you go there, you don't see anything. So what is role-based authentication access? Okay, I can access certain pages, you cannot access certain pages. So how can you implement them? You will in your database have, let's say, an admins table. Only whoever is part of the admins table is able to access certain endpoints, and other people aren't. So that's the difference between admins and user. Role-based access, and you read through the CMS code, see how we access control the admin endpoint, and you'll understand from there. What is refresh token, access token? Please teach refresh token. We will in a video. Long story short, they let you refresh, as the name suggests, refresh tokens from time to time, because it's a bad idea. It is bad practice for you to issue one token that lives forever. So that is why refresh and access tokens come. What is OAuth? Can we create on OAuth? What is OAuth? We'll definitely discuss. Login with Google, login with Facebook. Can we create our own OAuth? Probably not. But we can, but we probably won't in the code. But there's a very nice blog post that explains it very well. If you understand that blog post, I don't have the link to. I tried the last time also. I forgot what it's called. Explain me like I'm 5 OAuth, something like that. Explains how OAuth works under the hood. We probably should. We have multiple websites, like we have project100x.com, we have app.100xsteps.com, we probably have a bunch of other websites in the future. So it makes sense for us to have OAuth, have a single authentication. You logged into 100x steps, and then you can log into all the auxiliary websites using it. Let's see if we implement that, then sure, I'm happy to teach it over there. Will you teach aggregations in MongoDB, for example, maybe in an offline video or in live? Sure. Last cohort also people were asking it. I don't think I was able to create it. So if I create one, I'll just post it in the last cohort as well. Sure, we'll do aggregations in MongoDB. All right. But yeah, you said the main has been NoSQL schema, that is schema-less schema defined. But in the end, we're defining the schema at the top of the data in MongoDB. What can be a good point that we told to the interviewer? But in the end, we're defining the schema on top of data we are inserting in the MongoDB. Yeah. So you should tell the interviewer, okay, we are defining this schema because we want our application to be strict. You can use a different library. There is another library called MongoDB. Wahan pe you don't have to describe the schema. If you are using Mongoose, then Mongoose asks you to describe the schema. Maybe in Mongoose also it lets you raw insert data in there with the wrong schema as well. So just because you have defined the schema in here doesn't mean कि आपके database में अब random data नहीं जा सकता. I can put whatever random data that I want in my database. MongoDB is still a NoSQL database. MongoDB is still schema-less. You can put whatever random data you want, but you are restricting to decrease the number of Node.js errors, decrease the number of errors in your application by restricting the schema, by defining the schema over here. You define the schema over here so that your Node.js application is not able to put anything wrong in the database. But if there is an admin, they can put whatever wrong data in here, no one's stopping them. So MongoDB is still schema-less. You try to make it more strict through Mongoose. Oh, you got a company, great. Akash, make a note. Projects, full stack, 3JS. Okay. Oh, well, now everyone will send me a link of 10 projects because that guy did and got hired. Let's see. Actually looks good only. 2.6 very specific. I recently completed backend training code and have since full stack projects. I would certainly appreciate a review on these projects. Let's see. Oh boy, that looks good. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. This is very good. Question is this a clone? I would assume it is. Not easy to build this. This is so cool, very addictive. This is good. I was connected to a bunch of metaverse companies, like 3D metaverse companies. They would have loved to hire you. I'm not anymore. I'm sure they've downsized. Let me see. I don't have anything at the top of my head. But yeah, you have good 3JS experience. Unfortunately, I'm not connected to companies that need 3JS. This is a bad website. Let's start by logging you in. I don't have a login button. But this is average. Your game was good, but you'll have to find a very niche 3JS company that whatever actually hires which are hard to find. I think you sent me this before, or someone else cloned from the same website as you. Again, good if you've built it yourself. I don't know if that is the case because it's hard to do. So decent projects. I can't say ekdam say ki haan connect worthy. but it's a start. Not reviewing it. Scheduled interview for React Native Dev in Zepto. I need help to plan over the weekend regarding the preparation, considering it's of JS and React Native interviews. I have 2 years of experience in React Native, but it's been a while since I've done an interview, like 3 years. I raised up interview that was reviewed by Sargam. Nice. So if you have 2 years of experience, basically have a few. It's too late for this anyways, but it would be good. It's always good if someone is interviewing for a mobile role that you have some applications out there. Other than that, there may be standard questions around what is native app development, how is it different from React Native, how does React Native convert its code into the native code, what is that JavaScript runtime that keeps running in the background that communicates, how is React Native fast, is it fast or not compared to Flutter. Questions like these are the only tough questions I can think of. Simple questions I'm sure you already know if you have 2 years of experience. The questions that might be asked are architecture of React Native and what is Expo, what are non-Expo applications, things like these. Prepare for that. Other than that, if you have it this weekend, there's not too much preparation you can do anyway. Just stay calm and let me know how it goes. Let me bookmark this. I will of course forget. Let me also follow you on GitHub. So I can approved, right? Oh, he didn't approve, did he? It's fine. I'll do a small bounty just for kicks. Doesn't really matter to you, I would assume. All right. Moving on. All the best for the interview. To do with DB and auth, that looks good. You have the whole thing working. A nice to do application. Bunch of other things. Very cool. How you practice JavaScript to build some confidence, solve a few DSA problems. Assignment solution video, this will be hard, but okay, I will try. Or I'll ask someone else to do it. I hate solving assignments, but sure, let me try. Can you explain how people are able to create an awesome UI? So we need a video on this desperately. Maybe I'll ask Keshav to do it, considering he makes such awesome UIs and he designs them as well. Yeah. Long story short, you need some design sense, or you need a Figma, to follow along. But yeah, I can create. We should have some, this is needed in the cohort because it leads to conversions. Code looks good. I think I answered this one. Assignment looks good. To do with DB looks good. Don't have access. Looks good. And this was also pretty good. All right, that was it, folks. I will see you guys tomorrow, where we will build on top of the application that we had today. Understand some more important things, maybe routing in Express, password hashing, relationships in MongoDB. I think these 3 would be a good start. And then we'll go from there. All right. With that, let's end it. I will have to call it here, guys. I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye bye. I will try to upload fast. Yes. At least on harhir.classes.co.in, you will find it maybe in an hour.